Hello, welcome back to Hazel Jane Tarot. And today we're going to be talking about my September favourites. So, in the month of September, or in Irish, Man-4, which means the middle harvest or the middle of the harvest, I have got two new tarot decks. Now, I have shown this deck before. I have a full review of it on my channel. So I'll only spend a little minute looking at it today, but this is the Black Tarot, or the R Black Tarot. And this is an independently produced deck. And you can find the artist on Instagram. So I'll try to link R Black's Instagram below. So this is a deck that I had been following for a long time, the creation of on Instagram. And the deck that has come out is really beautiful, but it is the production quality of the cards themselves are a little bit disappointing, which I discussed on my review video. So I haven't used it that much yet. I've used it a little bit for readings. I really do love the interpretations of the cards in this deck. I haven't rounded the corners yet. Some people have. I haven't decided yet whether I want to, but I have noticed that, say, on this cloth that I use for a spread cloth, it does catch the threads, these sharp corners. So I might have to round the corners, and I might edge it in black. I'm not sure. I'll have to see. I don't want to bleed into the front of the deck. So anyway, this is the R Black Tarot, and if you want to learn more about that, I have a full review on my channel, which I will link below. The other new deck that I got this month, I haven't even opened the packet of, so I can't show you yet. That is the Seasons of the Witch Yule Oracle. I knew I was going to want it coming up to Christmas, and I thought rather than waiting and getting it then, as some mass market decks have been a wee bit tricky with distribution over the last while, I thought I would just grab it when I saw it available online. So this is still in the plastic and waiting for the season of Yule for me to take it out of the packaging. So there'll be more on that down the line sometime. So those are the two new tarot decks that I've got this month. In terms of music that I've been listening to, I had the very great pleasure early in September of going to see a live concert. And that was my first live concert in, oh gosh, since before the pandemic. So well over a year and a half. And it was to see Bronagh Gallagher performing with her band in the Cathedral Quarter Arts Festival in Belfast. So it was a kind of a semi-outdoors in a marquee. And it was her and her band's first time performing live in over 18 months as well. And just the energy, the performance she was unbelievably good. And that concert had actually was filmed and is all on YouTube. So I will link the concert below for you if you want to go and check it out. Bronagh Gallagher, as you can see, I already had this CD from the last time I saw her live a few years ago, and then I picked this one up, which is an older one, on this occasion at the merch stand. And she's great to listen to recording, but her charisma and energy as a live performer is just fabulous. So she's from Derry. She's an Northern Irish musician, and if you're not familiar with her, well worth checking out, and especially the live performance, which I will link below. I've also started listening again to this album. This is an album that's been out for a good few years, Tori Amos's Night of Hunters, and it's kind of a hard one to explain if you haven't listened to this album, but it is it's kind of with a string quartet or an orchestra, and it tells a story, kind of like a song cycle more than like a regular album. And she has used her daughter to do vocals on this album as well. And the stories seem to be quite inspired by mythology, Welsh mythology particularly. Like there is this one, The Chase, is I think it's Ceridwen's pursuit of, can't remember who she is pursuing, but where I'm the greyhound chasing after you, and I'll change into the otter, and change into a fish, and changing into the grain of corn, and then I'm the hen, and I can, you might recognize that story from mythology. So this is a very kind of stormy album musically, and it reminds me very much of kind of stormy, wintry or autumnal evenings. And I tend to listen to this when the weather turns and it starts to get gloomier and colder and darker. So this is, if you've never come across this album, it's a really interesting album, an interpretation of the sort of myth, but turning it into something else. So I'll link one of the tracks from this below, maybe the first one, that's Shattering, because if you like that, you'll probably like the album. And if you don't like that, this will not be your cup of tea. So yeah, so I've started listening to this, but I will be listening to this repeatedly throughout the autumn and into the winter, because it is just that time of year, this album. And the other album that I got and started listening to this month is this double album of Judee Sill. Now, Judee Sill was a singer-songwriter in the 1970s. So her first album, Judee Sill, was 1971, and her second album, which was called Heart Food, was in 1973. And Judee Sill is a kind of not very well known or not often talked about sort of folk singer-songwriter, but she kind of has a sort of a psychedelic, orchestral elements in her music. I think she calls herself something like Baroque folk or something like that. But she was phenomenally talented songwriter, pianist, guitar player. And I first came across her from a documentary on BBC Radio, which is still on iPlayer. So if you're in the UK, I will try to link the BBC iPlayer documentary, because I listened to that again this month. I'd been thinking about Judee Sill, and I hadn't been able to find this CD, this double album. And so I bought it for a second time. So I've had this album before, but I don't know if I lent it to someone or if I've just lost it, but I couldn't find it. So I bought it a second time. So I'll link that documentary below for anybody who's in the UK who would be able to listen to it on iPlayer Radio. And then I'll try to link one of her songs. She has a song called Jesus Was a Crossmaker, which is just fantastic, which I will try to link below if I can find it on YouTube. So that's somebody I've been listening to a good bit this month and will be continuing to listen to, because she's just rather fabulous. So back to decks. The decks that I've been using have been kind of a mixed bag. There's nothing that has really got a lot of intensive use this month. Probably the one I've used the most is the Oracle deck Through the Eyes of the Soul by Cheryl Yambach Rose, which you'll have seen before in my my August favourites. So I've been pulling a card from this and leaving it sitting out on the little easel that I have for card pulls. Not every day, but maybe pulling a card every few days when I felt like there was time for a new message to come through. The art is just so beautiful. I love looking at this deck, and I don't often feel the need to read the little guidebook. I did read the full guidebook when I got it first, and I think the keywords and the imagery are kind of quite evocative on their own without needing to read the little paragraph in the guidebook. And the card backs are so gorgeous. So that's probably been getting the most frequent use. Another deck that I've been using pretty frequently is this one. The box is in my bedroom, so I don't have it with me. But this is the Goddess Love Oracle by Wendy Andrews. And I have another little easel in my bedroom where I display a card that I sometimes pull at night. And this is the deck that I've been using for that. Now, for a number of months from sort of May through to August, I was using the Mysteries of Mary Tarot. And I have put it away for now, and I'm using this instead. And I think I maybe showed this last month as well, because I had started using it towards the end of August. So it's just lovely. The messages are all very gentle, but there is an action kind of recommended in the guidebook for each one. Some of them are quite, you know, challenging, like requiring you to do quite a bit of, you know, thinking or inner work, or, so it's a lovely deck. I mean, look how gorgeous this art is. And I love how seasonal the images are, like going from sort of Halloween kind of themed images to very wintry, you know, so it's just gorgeous. So I'm really enjoying that. And I have had Wendy Andrews' kind of Wheel of the Year that I got in Glastonbury, with it having been the autumn equinox in September. That has been changed to a new goddess, and I've changed the little Wendy Andrews card goddess that's on display in my house as well. But I don't have them to show you right now because they're on the wall. But I did mention those in my Glastonbury haul video, which I will try to link below if you haven't seen it already. The other change that I made in September is I had been using the Universal Celtic Tarot, and again I have posted a full review of this deck on my channel, which I will try to link below. So one of the things that I was feeling like I wanted to do something to shake up my tarot use this month and do something a little bit differently, and I decided to kind of go back and do things a bit old school. And what I used to do when I was learning a new deck was use the deck every night and go through it like this, face up, and try to choose a card that reflected the mood of the day that I'd had. And I'd been struggling a little bit to connect with this particular deck, even though I love the art style. And I covered this in my review video, so I'll not spend too long talking about it. But basically, when I started to go through this to see, does this card reflect my day or the feeling I have of my day? Because of the mythological creatures in this deck, like dragons and kind of little goblins and so on, and unicorns, I found myself just looking at it and saying no. And I wasn't really even, you know, sitting to take in, you know, what's the energy of the Eight of Pentacles, for example. It's like, oh, there's a little elf, no. And, you know, there's the Knight of Pentacles, which is often a signifier for me, but I immediately am thinking no, because I don't connect personally with this type of subject matter in the image. So after trying that for a week or so, I just realized that while I do really like this deck, I was struggling to connect with it personally for readings for myself. Like if I can't find a card in the deck that says, you know, the kind of day that I've had, then I'm not going to be able to read with it very easily about mundane matters, you know, for my own life. So I decided to put it aside, and I wanted to use a deck that actually was more connected to, you know, showing mundane matters in a clear way. And I picked out this deck, which is the Tarot de St. Croix, which again, the box is somewhere else. I just have the deck here to show you today. So the Tarot de St. Croix does have some kind of more magical images in it, but it also has kind of more mundane and real world images in it too. So I've got the little guidebook handy, and I've been going through the deck at bedtime and looking at all the images and trying to choose one that reflects the mood of my day. And I've been able to do that much more easily with this deck than I was with the Universal Celtic Tarot. So, like, for example, this triple goddess is like Bridget. It's a little bit sort of maiden mother crone, but it also reminds me of Bridget with the fire and maybe Saint Bridget and so on. You know, so there's lots to look at in this deck, and the little guidebook goes some way to explaining what the inspiration was behind the various images. And this deck is particularly special because this was sent to me by James Feeney, because I won his giveaway on his channel a few months ago. So this deck's extra special because of that. So I've been enjoying working with this deck. And another thing I did with this deck that I really enjoyed was I did an exercise that had been promoted by, or not promoted, but shared by Katie Flowers on her channel in her review of working with the Star Spinner Tarot. She talked about going through each of the suits, minor arcana, choosing the card that reflected how you were feeling at that time, and then looking at all the sort of equivalent cards across the suits and choosing your path forward. It was a really fabulous activity, and I did that with this deck, and it was a really helpful activity too. You can see it's actually still hasn't really been shuffled since that, because it's still kind of in suits pretty much. I will try to link Katie's video on the Star Spinner below if you haven't watched that, because her kind of tarot in practice, I think she's calling the series now, it's really great, and I really enjoyed it this month. And the other deck I've been using a little bit is the Tarot of the Abyss, and this deck is so beautiful. When I first pulled it out of the box, I thought, wow, I'm never going to need another tarot deck again, because it's just so beautiful and the images are so evocative and emotional. I have been finding it a little bit not a quick connect for me. Like when I read with it, it's not connecting with me as quickly as I had expected. And I think I do need to use it more for that to happen more easily. But I have done some readings with this deck and it is just gorgeous. So that's the Tarot of the Abyss, and that's a mass market US Games deck. And the art and everything is by Annemarie Ní Churreáin. So those are the decks I've been working with. And the last thing I wanted to share with you, let's see, is the books I've been reading. So I have been finally finished Tarot Interactions by Deborah Lipp, and I have put a full review of this book on my channel as well. So you can go and check that out if you're interested. But it was a really interesting book. It did give me a few really good exercises on working with tarot, and I feel like it's not a beginner book, it's sort of an intermediate book for people who've been working with tarot for a while. So if you want to hear more about that, there's a full review of it which I will link below. I read an audiobook, or listened to an audiobook as well this month by Bill Bryson called At Home, which was kind of a survey of sort of the history of domestic living. Kind of quite English focused, quite upper class focused, a lot of talk about, great architects of history and things like that. But I found it quite a diverting listen, all the just random facts about the history of toilets or windows or, different things to do with the house. So that was, it was not the first Bill Bryson book, but I did enjoy that one. And it was free on Audible as well, which was an extra bonus. I read another novel for my book group, but I didn't really enjoy that, so I'll not tell you about that. And I also this month attended a book reading of Kerry Ní Doherty, whose book Thin Places I shared earlier this year in my favourites. And so I went to see her read from her book and talk about her new work. But also at that same reading was this poet, Annemarie Ní Churreáin, and see this wee picture of her in the back there. And she read from this book and a little bit from some of her new work in progress as well. And this book of poetry was one of the great discoveries of the month, and I really, really enjoyed that. So in a little moment, I'm going to read you one of her poems to finish off. But just to warn you, the poetry subject matter, this book mostly deals with, is to do with the mother and baby homes in Ireland. So that was where unmarried women, were sent to have their babies, and their babies were taken from them. And these were places of terrible abuse, and the sort of the reckoning of that in Irish, in the history of Ireland and in the state's culpability in that, and the church's culpability in that is still sort of something that's still in progress, and those wounds are still very raw for many people. So the subject matter is potentially upsetting for people if you're still listening. So just a little bit of a warning, but I find her work very, very powerful. So I'm going to read you one of her poems just now before I go. So, sorry, I should have bookmarked the page. Okay, so the poem I'm going to read to you is this one, 6 Ways to Wash Your Hands. I'll maybe give you something else to look at because I need to lift this out of the way. So I'll just leave a few of Wendy Andrews cards for you while I'm reading you this poem. So 6 Ways to Wash Your Hands, written at Ayliffe it says Ayliffe 1978. So the dedication for this poem says, "For the Mother and Baby Homes Commission of Investigation." 1. Wet hands apply soap and rub palm to palm until a white lather forms like the spit and rage of women who, having lain among waves, were dragged back up again by the hair and stripped of their names to pay for the wrongs in their bellies, as they stitched lace, pressed linen sheets, and each week bowed their heads to the postpartum girls, all lined up at the font like a row of roots half pulled out of the earth and still holding on to their young. 2. Rub right palm over left dorsum and left palm over right dorsum to ensure the scent of infant leaves your skin, the sour fumes of bottled milk, triangled terry cloth, ice-cold smears of cream. The scent of sin can cling for years, as potent as a bad dream of trade deals, needle pricks, poppies bloomed on the skull. The scent of a child in an unmarked grave may get in beneath your fingernails and cause all sorts of problems in later life. 3. Rub palm to palm, fingers interlaced and around the wrists to erase all trace of fathers. Never mention cuffs, never mention scars. Raise your head against the sky and let the violet clouds overfill your eyes as the names of these men become again unknown as birds. When you see a wing, like a realm of thumbed pages fluttering, take this as a sign the fathers are no more. 4. Rub backs of fingers to opposing palm with fingers interlocked and loosen the joints of wards, nurseries, bolted pantries stocked with canisters of warm milk and cheese sold by the yellow quart as the imagined cream of it dripped from the mouths of hungry, swollen girls. Rub out the halls, statues, sills, leave only a rusted nail in a cemetery wall. 5. Rotational rubbing of right thumb clasped in left palm and vice versa to disimprint the memory of files. Wash clean the data until days, months, years signed by clammy hands run like slipstreams into a great shaking lake. This means that even should your lips part to release a holy word, all that will spill out is a wet pulp no one understands. 6. Rotational rubbing backwards and forwards with clasped fingers of right hand and left palm and vice versa. To wear thin the heart lines. Be a sister and repeat the law like a hymn into the sink. Do not commemorate. Do not remunerate. Do not let the wounded woman or her child speak in a bare tongue. Wash in this way and rid your hands of mother, baby, home. So that incredibly powerful work is by Annemarie Ní Churreáin, and I will try to link something to her website or social media so you can go and check her out. And as I say, she has another book coming out soon, I think, so that's something to check out. This book's published by Doire Press and should be available at any online bookseller. But very powerful work, and probably one of the highlights of my month was reading this book and hearing Annemarie read from her own work. And the last thing that I forgot to mention is sort of in the TV and film area. I went to see Everybody's Talking About Jamie at the cinema this month, which is a musical theatre film, and it was just great. It was just great. So if you've seen Everybody's Talking About Jamie, you want to have a chat about it in the comments, please let me know. And I also really enjoyed season 2 of Fort Salem, which I think is called Motherland in the US, which is a silly, fun show about witches at Army Academy, which seems very trivial to mention after the poem I've just read you. But if you have been enjoying Motherland or Fort Salem, I'd like to have a chat with you about that too in the comments. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you again back here soon. Bye.